just would like those boots, but
I know. Yo, thank you.
Is that okay? Should I move?
you're fine.
Are you sure? I'm short.
Good afternoon, everyone. A month ago, none of us would have ever dreamed we'd be gathered today under these circumstances. Bill Kraus had always experienced remarkable health. While a bad cold got him down in early December, he expected to recover. The day he died, he planned to go to dinner with my husband and me. And the night before he died, he went out for cat food. But then Bill experienced a fitful night. His wife insisted they go to the doctor, and in their preparation, he passed from this world. This was probably as much to his surprise as everyone else's, as his wife told me a few hours later. He'd always been so vigorous. We thought he'd live forever. But less than 3 months short of completing 93 years on this earth, the good Lord had other plans for Bill. And from somewhere out there, Bill thanks you all for coming to celebrate his life today. Also very appreciative is the wife he so loved, his wife of 37 years, Tony Sykes. The daughters he adored, Sally and Marcia and Nancy. The grandchildren he celebrated, Dana and Emma and Michael and Dashiell. And of course, their parents, and Tony's family as well, with whom Bill had gotten so close and who loved him so. All of us here offer you all our heartfelt sympathies. And I mean all of us here. There are so many, and so many that couldn't make it. Bill was respected and beloved by so many people. I only knew Bill for half of his almost 93 years. I met him when he and his sidekick, Bob Williams, brought me on board to help with the Dreyfus campaign. I had an ad agency back then. It was a startup. I was in my early 20s, but I had roots they could sort of trust. I, too, was from central Wisconsin, and I had gotten my undergraduate degree from UW Stevens Point, and there I had a professor that sort of thought I had promise. His name was Lee Dreyfus, and he suggested I go to grad school here in Madison. After the successful campaign, Bill also moved to Madison as Dreyfus's head of communications. He took up cooking. He'd experiment on me. Duck a la orange, not bad. He mentored me with advice I still refer to today. There's this 1979 missive on how women can rise in the world of men. From 1982, this on the Wisconsin economy and how to grow it. And from 1989, this on board service and good governance. This was the kind of mentoring on life and business and citizenship Bill provided many others, probably almost all of you in this room. He did in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and in this century to the day he died. When in my 20s, this selflessness of Bill led me to develop a sort of crush on him. So imagine when one night he invited me out to dinner at a romantic restaurant, candle lit. We ordered wine. He looked deep in my eyes and said, "Marcia, I've fallen in love, and I'm going to get married." He still might be hard. This was quickly followed by, "Her name is Tony Sykes." Her name is Tony Sykes, and I'd like you to meet her. Maybe see if you could be her friend. What? Clearly this woman, Tony, was the opposition. The audacity of it all, Bill was hoping I'd befriend the opposition and find some common ground. Sound familiar? Well, Tony and I did become best friends. In the same way Bill brought many of you together, many of you of different thoughts and persuasions. And he brought you together over drinks and dinner in his home that he cooked himself, he brought you together over golf, over the discussion of good books, and of course he brought you together in campaigns and later on in good causes like Common Cause. For a lifetime of achievement bringing people together, in 2018 the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service created the Bill Kraus Lifetime Achievement Award. As its first recipient, of course, was Bill. Given the impossible task of summarizing Bill's legacy for that event, I spent a couple of hours with Bill specifically to talk with him about his philosophy of life. As I said, Bill and I were no strangers. For decades, we vacationed together several times a year with our spouses and with two other couples, Chan and Bev McKelvey and Bob and Mary Williams. This group of 8, Bill and Bob, branded the old farts. As many of you know, Bill could not join any group but what he didn't give it a brand name. Having spent so much time together, I knew Bill could not wrap his head around the impact he had and still was having on so many. After all, if you looked at his Facebook page then, he listed himself as a has-been. And back in 1980, he confessed to a Milwaukee Journal reporter, "I have always had the suspicion that I am superficial. That I have always been superficial, always will be superficial, and that's my unhappy fate." Well, you and I know that Bill's impact has been anything but superficial. That's because he practiced, and practiced extraordinarily well, a ministry of sorts. His ministry had 2 prongs, but they were related. One was citizen-centered democracy. The other was the idea that we should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, listen to each other, collaborate. In 1980, that Milwaukee Journal reporter put in his article this quote from Bill: "I am the fly in everybody's ointment, a man who initiates, motivates, aggravates, pontificates." Isn't that what great ministers do? They initiate, motivate, aggravate, pontificate. And Bill did this far and wide, so much so that you'll easily recognize the tenets of his ministry. Let the people decide. Because the collective wisdom of common men and women will result in good decisions for our democracy. No wonder he embraced people of all races and all sexual orientations, all political persuasions. He knew that in every person were seeds of wisdom and the ability to contribute. Another tenet, civil discourse. Why, Bill was known to hang out with Democrats, invite them into his home. He even befriended members of the press. To his dying day, Bill also preached the need for transparency. The Dreyfus administration was famously transparent. Even the administration's quarters in the Capitol building were configured as a bullpen where everyone could hear everyone else, and of course the press could walk in anytime and hear everyone else, and they did walk in and listen. And it developed sort of trust and respect between the press and the Dreyfus administration. Trust and respect. What concepts? Throughout his life, Bill preached transparency. Transparency in funding through common sense campaign finance reform. Transparency in voting, tackling gerrymandering as a threat to the voice of the common man. Transparency of motives in the political campaigns on which he worked. Even when serving as campaign manager, Bill worked as an unpaid volunteer. By sacrificing income for what he was advocating, Bill's belief in the candidate was transparent, as was his integrity. This represents another of Bill's teachings. Practice what you preach. Among the many things Bill preached and practiced was the self-discipline to do what's right for the long haul. In politics, this of course was all about avoiding knee-jerk solutions to complex problems, to do what's right for democracy's long haul, what's responsible for generations to come. In life, he also preached and practiced the self-discipline to do what's right for the long haul for one's family. Why, even at 92, he exercised 3 times a week at a local gym. And ever the minister of democracy, there he converted his personal trainer to the value of reading newspapers. The responsibilities of citizenship. Which brings me to the last 2 tenets of Bill's to highlight. Quote, democracy is not a plaything. Citizenship is not something you can delegate. Quote, do not sit on the sidelines. And then this one, life is not a plaything. Do not sit on its sidelines. Never miss the chance to celebrate every birthday with a party. Work to not be superficial. Mentor the next generation. Make a difference in the lives of others. Well, Bill was a hell of a minister. And over the holidays, my husband and I would find ourselves reviewing the news of the day and asking each other, what would Bill say about this? Before, there had always been the chance to call Bill or ask him questions over dinner, and often before we could even muse what he would say, there would be an incoming email with his thoughts. Now, many of you counted on Bill's insights in the same way, and like me, for years to come, you will be wondering, what would Bill say about this? Yet so oversized was Bill's impact on each of us that I'll bet, if we just listen, Bill's voice will still speak to us. In fact, right now he's telling me, Marcia, wrap it up. but he's adding, just tell them not to forget. Democracy is not a plaything. Champion it in the processes that let the people decide. Every one of us has value, so listen to each other, collaborate. And life is not a plaything. Be generous with your time and talent. Do unto others as you want done unto you. The minister still speaks to us all. Thanks, Bill. Amen.
I am so grateful that Tony asked me to be part of today's celebration. Bill Kraus was a major influence in my life. Through the Dreyfus campaign, our tenure in the governor's office, and 36 years after that, Bill was my mentor and motivator. He introduced me to Broadway and to great recipes. He taught me the value of the written word, but above all else, Bill was my pal, in good times and in tough moments. So thank you, Tony. I met Bill Kraus in 1976 when I was a student at Stevens Point. Standing before me in the campus radio station was this direct, witty, charismatic, worldly, and well-dressed man. I was in awe. This guy was so cool. And he was asking me to join a campaign for governor that was in its infancy. Pretty heady stuff for a college kid from Baraboo. Of course, Kraus later described my campaign job as driving a soon-to-be governor around and making sure that the 16-piece band didn't become a 17-piece band. But tapping young, raw talent was part of Kraus's genius. In his book about the Dreyfus years, Let the People Decide, he wrote, intelligent, dedicated people can do more than they think they can do, and more than you think they can do, if they are given complete responsibility and freedom to do it. Whether it was riding herd on the band or managing hundreds of gubernatorial appointees, Bill knew how to get the best out of me and everyone else, and in the process taught us how to get the best out of others. He never approached politics in a conventional way, and people noticed. During the campaign, a reporter commented, Bill, you said at the outset of this campaign that in order to win, you would have to invent a whole new kind of campaign. And we're beginning to think you have. The kind of candor that you indulge in daily is unlike anything a normal candidate is even casually acquainted with. That was Bill, straight talking and telling it as it was. And we all loved him for it. And Bill lived his words with concepts like the bullpen in the governor's office, where almost everyone worked in open instead of individual offices. People had ready access to the governor, and the media could wander in whenever they would like. The Dreyfus campaign was also the launch of what would become a 4-decade crusade for Kraus, to create a political world where money, power, influence, connections, and other traditional trappings of the election machine were eliminated so that all candidates were on equal footing as they ran for office. As Kraus wrote in 1977, when the public media decided that money was more important than power and began to shape their coverage around marketing areas instead of political boundaries, they created a problem for political campaigns that no one has figured out how to overcome. Some might argue that he was tilting at windmills, but I know that Bill was just doing his utmost to make the world a better place. And that's why he inspired so many of us. The copy of Let the People Decide that I used in preparing my remarks had an inscription, which read, "What this represents is a rare opportunity to get a gander at your own conception." Not your actual conception, of course, your occupational one. All these crazy people did all this loony stuff just to get us new things to do. So many of us discovered our occupational conception with Bill's guidance. I've often said that I received my bachelor's degree at Stevens Point, my master's from Lee Dreyfus, and my PhD from Kraus. He shared what he knew, provided ideas and life lessons, and made us more than we thought we could be. It's incredibly hard to imagine that he's gone and the lessons have ended. But take heart, because I, for one, think Bill's still reaching out to us. Let me explain why. The morning that Bill was taken to the hospital, Tony put his phone in her purse to give him later. Sadly, Bill didn't need his phone later. As Tony and the family were leaving the hospital, that phone rang. It was Chan McKelvey calling Bill to finalize plans for the Friday lunch group. As a close friend of Bill's and sharing the same friends, Chan accepted the task of conveying the news of Bill's passing. Wasn't that a kind and helpful coincidence to have Bill's phone in hand so easily? However, it may have been more than a coincidence. I decided to reread Kraus's book for preparation for today, but I couldn't find my copy. After considerable searching and more than a little whining to my sister that I was having trouble finding the book, Christine said, "Just go order one on Amazon." What a good idea. I found several used copies available on Amazon and ultimately selected the one that said it was both signed and inscribed by the author. I shared that occupational inscription earlier, and now, as they say, is the rest of the story. The book that I ordered happened to be the book that Kraus had inscribed to none other than Chan McKelvey. Chan had also been looking for his copy. But realized that he had loaned it out, only to never get it back. Until now. Here it is, Chan, from me, and I think Bill, again.
Yeah.
easier to speak at Bill's birthday parties than it is today. Putting 4 decades of friendship, memories, mentorship, adventures into about 4 minutes is a pretty daunting task. Fortunately, Kraus attempted to teach me brevity, and Tony reminded us that Sue and I were to touch just on the Dreyfus era. The Dreyfus era was back when politics was fun, and government was about the common good. And it was when I both met and had the privilege to work with Bill Kraus as campaign manager and ultimately as chief of staff. Well, at least in my mind. Really, he was a part of a triad of managers who were attempting to make some sense out of Wisconsin's government with some harmony and some honesty and a little humor. Everyone has their viewpoint, but from my vantage point, I think Kraus was pretty much the brains behind electing a chancellor from Stevens Point as Wisconsin's governor. It was in a very motley office in the back of the Stevens Point YMCA that we spent every day trying to figure out how to get this guy elected. It was there where Kraus gave us that powerful campaign slogan, "Let the people decide," where he took all of the calls about Joyce's bad hair and managed to keep the ragtag band and the bus on the road. His approach with the press was always to be open. His words were fresh and full of truth, and he brought some kind of crazy chemistry to our chaos. He masterminded, with the help from some of his friends, the 30-minute Rhinelander TV show where we allowed the introduction of Lee to the public. He orchestrated the primary victory over the endorsed Republican candidate, kept the conservatives and the moderates from going at it any too loudly or any too publicly throughout the campaign, and managed to stay at least 1 league ahead of Lee. Once we made it to the governor's office, Kraus gave open government a whole new definition. He implemented the bullpen. He fought off the demons like the truckers who were striking and the Republicans who kept trying to tell us they were on our side. Kraus bought coffee for the entire press corps every single day for 4 years. And then he convinced the IRS that it was a tax-worthy crime. He got Paul Swain to talk. He took a risk on talented young people. He convinced seasoned veterans to give government a try. And yes, he quit smoking. And through it all, he made us look like the best and the brightest. It was back when politics was fun and government was about the common good. You might remember that Kraus kept the most important data on a note card in his shirt pocket. He taught us we had to talk to everybody at least once, that you do not argue with people who buy ink by the barrel. And he championed education, fiscal responsibility, women's and gay rights, and open, transparent government. On a more personal note, Kraus encouraged each of us to read more. And he taught me to write, which he so brilliantly did in his 90-plus years on this earth. He had gone from pencil and paper to the Smith Corona typewriter, to a big old mainframe computer, to a laptop, to his Apple tablet, and ultimately to his smartphone. But whatever the device, his words were always wise and always personified the power of the written word. He introduced me to boiled dinner. He brought our dear friend Tony into our lives.
and gave us all an excuse to dance and sing with. Who better on Broadway than Bill? He taught me that you must be jolly. That to be easily amused is really a great attribute. That Mr. Goodwires really do belong in lemon jello. And knew me well enough to celebrate the birth of our 2 children while we were in the Dreyfus administration, not only bringing champagne to the hospital, but chocolate ice cream too. It is tough to imagine life without Kraus. The idea of not being able to pick up the phone, exchange an email, or enjoy a meal together, talk about the latest books we've read, the most pressing political issues, and check in with each other about the people we love, it's tremendously sad. I wish this were another birthday party, or a special edition dinner, or even a retirement party. But it's not. It is a celebration of life and a tribute and goodbye to an incredible man who touched an incredible number of lives. While not akin to organized religion, Bill had an extraordinary moral compass and a faith in something bigger than you and me. And I take some comfort in believing that he is in some way still among us, watching over each of us as we muddle through our earthly lives. And so, as I did so often in his earthly life, I have one last favor to ask of Kraus. Bill, may your angel wings nudge us when we need to know what is really right, and give us the quiet courage to act. May your eternal presence motivate our minds to pick up another book and read it. Motivate our hands to write notes of encouragement and affirmation. And open our hearts to unconditional love. May your Spirit touch our souls and instill in each of us your servant heart as we tend to the enormous legacy you have left behind. Bill, may you rest in peace, and may your memory guide us in each of our days.